I read a poem lately that said, everybody and everything is always changing, and there is nearly nothing wrong with that. And I want to explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is everything is always moving. We know this through physics. Everything vibrates. Everything. Nothing through what we know through science is solid. It shifts. It's dark matter. It has photons and light rays that come in as light matter and shift in ways that are inexplicable scientifically, even in physics. Metaphysically, we can talk about it like saying, well, if everything changes, then why should that not be okay? We look at a rock and we see it as solid and we say, that thing is solid. I can't put my hand through it. But if everything changes, if weather changes something, at one point a rock becomes sand. And at one point sand can become glass. And at one point glass can melt over centuries and become some other substance almost. Or another spatial, another part of recognitional space that didn't exist quite the same way that it did before. So it changed. And so if everything and everybody is changing, I possibly believe that there's nearly nothing wrong with that. All right. Now here's where I'll explain why I use the word nearly. Because I believe that there are ways of manipulation and power, of knowledge of these phenomenons that can be used incorrectly for the advantage that would be more hurtful than helpful. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know that anything is wrong. But in the more microscopic scheme of things, when things are hurtful, when it comes to change, that could be why I use the word nearly. It's not fair to misuse people, but change happens. America had a history of slave trade and slave use. That was a change from before the people who became slaves were slaves, and also a change of when that ceased and there were no longer slaves in that sense, but there still is that type of demeanor occurring. And that's always changing itself. There are some parts of change that I feel are not helpful, though in the grand scheme are going to happen. I have to accept it. So do you. You know, I'm one person, so are you. But philosophically, if I could take my brain matter and like pretend it's a trillion brain matter cell peoples thinking the same way as me, with my self-righteous, my self-righteous opinion of my love for life and humanity and earth and ethics and morals and values. And my own personal morals and values vary, but there's certain pieces of me that say to myself, or would say, and is and are saying now to you, well, ethically, you should not enslave people. It's a change. It's part of change, though. It goes in and out, or maybe it stays, but it just looks like a different thing, So when I say change happens to everybody and everything and is nearly never wrong, the nearly part only means that I have a little bit of skepticism on the way that change is treated. And that's something that you're going to have to think about for yourself, because change and shifts happen and you can fight things, and sometimes fights are not the best possible strategy. It's more about thinking about it and about what you want to fight about, This is where marriages fails, relationships fail because of small stuff, because change happens, But you have to make a distinction. And there is where I'm stunted right now, and I'll have to do another video, because where would I go from here to say what's wrong and what's right? So at this point, I say nearly. But in conclusion, I will say again, change happens to everybody and everything. And it's nearly never not perfectly right. Much love.